It is July 15th, 2026. And as of 6 Chabahar this morning Eastern Time, United States Central Command forces began launching fresh waves of strikes against Iran. This is not a continuation of previous strike packages from earlier in the week. This is a new operational cycle. Daily strikes. Daily? Well, bombing runs. Fighter jets and cruise missiles raining down on Iranian military infrastructure from multiple directions simultaneously as the battle for the Strait of Hormuz escalates into something that the Memorandum of Understanding signed at Versailles less than a month ago was supposed to prevent permanently. That document is now ash. The ceasefire is gone, and the bombs are falling on Iranian territory right now, this morning, as you watch this. Let us go through exactly what has been hit, what is still burning, and what comes next. Because the sequence of events that brought us from a signed peace agreement to daily, American bombing runs over Iranian cities in the span of 3 weeks, is one of the most compressed and consequential escalation cycles in modern military history. The port city of Chabahar took direct hits this morning. Massive smoke columns visible above the facility. The main control tower targeted and struck. Sequential bomb impacts visible across the port infrastructure as the strikes continued in waves. Chabahar is not a random target. It is one of Iran's most strategically significant maritime facilities. The deepwater port that Iran has spent years developing as its primary gateway to the Indian Ocean. Its alternative to Hormuz for its own trade, and the installation that gives Iran's naval forces a southern operational anchor outside the strait itself. Striking Chabahar is not just degrading military capability. It is removing one of the escape valves Iran uses when Hormuz becomes operationally contested. CENTCOM is closing the exits. Simultaneously, reports of explosions erupting in Shiraz, Iran's cultural heart, a city that sits atop a geography that makes it ideal for underground military infrastructure. The strike pattern at Shiraz is consistent with targeting hardened underground facilities, housing drone stockpiles and missile storage, the exact inventory the IRGC has been drawing on to conduct its harassment campaign against commercial shipping in the strait. The smoke columns rising above the mountain line behind the city are the visual signature of precision munitions penetrating the surface to reach what Iran believed was protected beneath it. Missile sites in Sarbandar and Mashhar in Khuzestan province also hit. Another underground facility taken out to deny Iran the ability to regenerate its strike capability as fast as CENTCOM is eliminating it. And the overnight package from July 14th, the details released this morning, gives the full picture of just how sustained and comprehensive this latest operational cycle has become. U.S. Central Command completed additional rounds of strikes at 10:01 p.m. Eastern on July 14th, hitting dozens of military targets near the Strait of Hormuz in a single 7-hour wave. 7 hours. U.S. fighter aircraft, drones, and naval vessels launching precision munitions simultaneously against Iranian missile sites, drone storage facilities, naval capabilities, and coastal defense infrastructure across the theater in a continuous 7-hour operation. Before and after imagery of the targeted sites shows the kind of change that requires no caption or interpretation. Everything present before the strikes. Nothing functional remaining after them. To understand why the United States is now conducting daily bombing runs against Iranian military infrastructure, when both sides had signed a formal 60-day ceasefire framework less than a month ago, you have to understand what Iran did with the last opportunity it was given, and the specific act of violence that finally ended whatever remained of the diplomatic track. The Memorandum of Understanding signed at Versailles gave Iran a structured, face-saving path to maintain some institutional authority over Hormuz transit, while allowing commercial shipping to function on a predictable international schedule. Iran's parliamentary speaker initially indicated acceptance of the framework's terms. Within 24 hours, he walked it back. And then the IRGC demonstrated what its interpretation of the agreement actually meant in operational practice, by launching Shahed attack drones directly into the bridges and engine rooms of commercial vessels that attempted to use the corridor CENTCOM had established. Near the Omani coast, a mariner was killed. Iran's position, delivered without ambiguity, was that any ship that did not coordinate its transit with Iranian routing authorities was a ship that had accepted the consequences. The world was being told that Iran's definition of ensuring safe passage was to attack ships that did not pay for it. That is not a ceasefire framework. That is extortion with drones as the collection mechanism. President Trump said publicly that he gave Iran every chance to negotiate a deal. They chose instead to blow up several ships. The Memorandum of Understanding is gone, the bombs are falling, and they will continue to fall until CENTCOM has degraded Iran's ability to threaten. Commercial shipping in the strait to the point where the threat no longer functions as leverage over global energy markets. That is the operational objective as of July 15th, 2026. And the pace and scale of the strikes currently underway suggest that CENTCOM intends to achieve it on an aggressive timeline. Iran is firing back. This needs to be stated plainly because the picture from the Iranian side is not one of total operational collapse, even if its military infrastructure is being systematically reduced strike by strike. Iran launched another attack on Bahrain overnight into July 15th. Drones and missiles hitting the Gulf Kingdom that has absorbed Iranian fire repeatedly throughout this conflict. Bahraini air defenses intercepted and destroyed several of the incoming attacks, but the strikes themselves demonstrate that the IRGC retains meaningful offensive capability even after weeks of sustained American strikes against its missile sites, drone storage facilities, and coastal infrastructure. The IRGC claims strikes on American military targets in Kuwait, a satellite communications center, air defense radar, a Patriot air defense complex, a military base readiness facility, and HIMARS launch platforms. These claims require the same skepticism that every IRGC operational announcement has demanded throughout this conflict. Some Iranian strikes have gotten through. The drone that punched through American defenses and hit its target in Kuwait during the overnight exchange was documented. The full extent of damage in Kuwait, as of this morning, has not been independently confirmed. What is known is that Iran fired, that some of it was intercepted, and that some of it was not. A drone is down in Basra, Iraq. Origin unclear as of this report, whether American or Iranian. The attribution is not yet confirmed. There is footage of an incoming missile being intercepted by Iranian air defenses. A bright light streaking across the frame, anti-aircraft fire audible in the background, the projectile disappearing before impact. Whether it was an American cruise missile successfully defending against Iranian point defense, or an Iranian interceptor catching an inbound weapon, the significance is the same. The air over Iran is contested in both directions right now. The United States has overwhelming strike dominance. Iran has residual defensive capability that is not yet zero. The battle space over the Persian Gulf in southern Iran is the most kinetically active it has been since February 28th. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed as of this morning. The IRGC Navy fired on 2 commercial vessels in the past 24 hours. Very few ships are transiting. The commercial traffic that had cautiously begun moving again under the now-defunct ceasefire framework has stopped. The global oil market is processing what happens to energy prices when the waterway that carries 20% of the world's traded crude becomes a live combat zone again. And the answer it keeps arriving at is the same answer it arrived at in March. Pain, widespread, immediate, cascading economic pain that radiates from the Gulf outward to every economy on the planet that runs on oil, which means every economy on the planet. The open-source aircraft tracking picture over the theater right now shows multiple aerial refueling tankers airborne, a P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft active, and fighter jet packages moving through the operational envelope. And that is only what is visible to civilian tracking systems. The full picture of American air assets currently operating over Iran and the Persian Gulf is significantly larger. The assets that cannot be seen, the stealth platforms, the electronic warfare aircraft operating in a mission control, the drone packages whose signatures do not appear on civilian transponder data, those are doing the work that produces the bomb impacts visible in the footage coming out of Chabahar and Shiraz right now. There's a specific target that has moved to the center of the strategic discussion in the last 24 hours, and that requires direct attention. Pickaxe Mountain, the hardened underground nuclear facility in the Natanz region that Iranian officials have described as the most fortified nuclear installation in the world. President Trump has stated publicly and repeatedly that the United States intends to strike Pickaxe Mountain, that it will be taken out one way or another. Iranian parliament members have responded by warning that the surrounding region will turn to hell if the site is struck, a threat that reflects both the genuine danger of attacking a facility housing enriched nuclear material and the Iranian government's desperate need to establish a credible deterrent against the one target that the IRGC cannot afford to lose. The operational challenge of Pickaxe Mountain is real and specifically documented. Intelligence assessments suggest the facility may extend to depths of up to 300 feet beneath solid rock, potentially beyond the single penetration capability of even the GBU-57 massive ordnance. Penetrator, the 30,000-pound bunker-busting weapon that the B-2 Spirit carries, and that was used against Isfahan during Operation Midnight Hammer. Multiple sequence GBU-57 strikes against the same penetration axis, using each preceding detonation to pre-fracture the geology for the following weapon may be required to reach material at that depth. The B-2 can carry 2 GBU-57s per sortie. The B-21 Raider, now approaching operational availability, brings longer range and superior stealth penetration characteristics against adapted air defense systems. The targeting database that CENTCOM has built over months of persistent surveillance of Pickaxe Mountain is current and comprehensive. Space Force persistent overhead coverage has been monitoring truck movement and material signatures around the facility continuously. The question is not whether the United States has the capability to strike Pickaxe Mountain. The question is whether the decision has been made and when the execution follows. Iranian officials are not limiting their public statements to warnings about Pickaxe Mountain. An Iranian member of parliament and a former foreign minister have proposed that Iran launch attacks against American military bases across the region and kidnap American military personnel to hold as hostages. This proposal needs to be stated in full because its implications are severe in a way that the Iranian officials making it appear either not to understand or not to care about. If Iran attacks American military installations and seizes American service members as hostages, the response from the United States will not be another carefully calibrated strike package against IRGC coastal infrastructure. It will be of a scale and character that makes everything executed in this conflict to date look, in the most literal possible sense, like a warm-up. The American military does not negotiate for hostages under military threat. It eliminates the threat. Every Iranian commander, every IRGC general, every political figure in Tehran who is seriously considering authorizing an American hostage operation should understand with absolute clarity what that decision produces. Not leverage, but the total destruction of whatever institutional capacity the Iranian state still retains to defend itself. The question of Israeli involvement is worth addressing directly, because the absence of Israeli air operations in the current strike cycle is visible and notable to anyone following the theater closely. Israeli defense assessments as of July 15th describe the United States as actively ramping up preparations for a possible return to full-scale war with Iran, potentially within weeks. One Israeli intelligence source stated simply that there will be a war. The only question is when. The collapse of the Memorandum of Understanding, the confrontation over Strait, governance, and Iran's most recent military actions are being assessed in Tel Aviv as signs of renewed escalation heading toward a full conflict threshold. Israeli officials appear to expect that when that threshold is formally crossed, they will return to active participation alongside American forces in the way they operated during the initial phases of the conflict in February and March. Whether that calculation is correct, whether Washington wants Israeli aircraft in the strike packages, given the diplomatic complications Israeli involvement creates with Gulf partners and with the international community, is a question that Tel Aviv and Washington are apparently still working through in private while the bombs fall in public. The oil market response to the resumption of daily strikes is exactly what the economics of this situation predict. Every exchange that degrades commercial shipping confidence in the Strait pushes prices higher. Every indication that the ceasefire framework is beyond recovery pushes them higher still. The brief period of market optimism that followed the Versailles signing, when traders began pricing a durable resolution to the Hormuz crisis and to energy futures, has been erased. The market is now pricing a conflict that has no visible near-term endpoint. That repricing reaches every economy that imports energy, which is every significant economy in the world. Food prices, aviation costs, manufacturing inputs, consumer goods, everything that is produced, transported, or heated runs on the energy that is now being contested in real time over the same 34-kilometer waterway it has always been contested over. The strategic picture, as of July 15, 2026, is one of a conflict that has moved decisively from its ceasefire phase back into its active combat phase, with a pace and geographic scope of American strikes that exceeds anything in the previous February through June operational cycle. Chabahar struck, Shiraz struck, Sarbandar and Mashar struck. The overnight package hitting dozens of targets near the Strait in a 7-hour continuous operation. IRGC naval capabilities being reduced, strike by strike. Drone storage facilities eliminated before the inventory inside them can be launched. Missile sites taken out before their contents can reach Bahrain or Kuwait. Coastal radar infrastructure, what remains of it after 4 waves of suppression operations, being systematically removed so that whatever the IRGC tries to launch from its diminishing operational inventory does so without the targeting picture that made those weapons effective when this conflict began. Iran's ability to regenerate military capability faster than CENTCOM eliminates it is the central operational question that determines the conflict's timeline. The answer, based on the damage accumulation visible across the past 5 months of strikes, is that Iran is not regenerating fast enough. Its centrifuge manufacturing capability has been severely degraded. Its missile production infrastructure has been hit repeatedly. Its drone storage facilities keep being found and destroyed. Its radar networks keep going dark. The IRGC is firing with inventory that was stockpiled before the conflict began, using launch infrastructure that is being reduced every night, targeting with sensors that are being eliminated strike by strike. At some point, the math of that attrition produces an IRGC that can no longer mount the kind of coordinated, multi-vector attack against commercial shipping and American military bases that it has been executing throughout June and July. The question is, how many more strike packages separate the current moment from that point? The battle for Hormuz is the operational name that fits what is happening right now. Not a war for the Middle East in the broadest sense, not a conflict about ideology or alliance architecture or the post-American world order. A battle for a 34-kilometer channel of water that carries 20% of the world's oil. The side that controls that channel controls a lever of the global economy that no political or economic system can function without. The United States has decided, as of July 15th, 2026, that it intends to be the side that controls it. CENTCOM is executing that decision with every strike package that lifts off this morning. The smoke columns above Chabahar and Shiraz are the visible evidence of that decision being implemented in real time. And the bombs, as of 6:00 Eastern this morning, are still falling.